Next, Native Americans living in Oklahoma journey to Ohio to connect to the ancient past. Then, an Adena Mound in Clintonville reveals clues about who was here centuries ago. And later, we'll see an ancient artifact that may have illustrated a story of transformation.
Support for Columbus Neighborhoods is provided by...
At American Electric Power, we've been proud sponsors of WOSU Public Media for many years and strong supporters of our headquarters city here in Columbus, both downtown and in neighborhoods like yours.
State Auto Insurance Companies, transforming to become a digital provider of auto, home, and business insurance. And for nearly 100 years, committed to the people and neighborhoods of Central Ohio. State Auto. The Columbus Foundation. Smart philanthropy for a smart city. ColumbusFoundation.org. Bailey Cavalieri. Your relationship with your law firm doesn't need to be complicated, it just needs to be right. CODA. Keeps our community moving forward. Falgren Moortime Marketing and Communications. Think wider. Ohio Health focuses on you and your family with a mission to improve the health of our communities. Women in Philanthropy at Ohio State, changing lives by giving together. And by contributions from these and other Columbus area families who support WOSU. Thank you.
For generations, Ohio was home to thousands of Native Americans from several tribes, but they were forced from their land as settlers made their way from the east. This removal included brutal fights such as the Battle of Fallen Timbers. Recently, members of several Native tribes journeyed from Oklahoma to Ohio to visit that site and others to connect the past and the present.
I'm originally from Oklahoma. When I joined the Ohio History Connection, it was a brand new position. The organization had never had, up until that point, a Director of American Indian Relations. You could sense that the Ohio History Connection really wanted to focus a lot more on tribal relations and establishing relationships with tribes and maintaining those and strengthening those relationships. This Tribal Nations Conference is year 3 of inviting federally recognized tribes to come back to Ohio, tribes who have historic and pre-contact even connections to this place.
We were the first tribes to officially be removed from Ohio back in 1832. And so while we have been in Indian Territory and Oklahoma ever since that, then we consider that home. Nevertheless, our history is truly here. It's a long drive from Oklahoma to here. We're not able to be here to protect our sites, our history. Ohio History Connection is charged with that, so it's important to me, to us, to have a close relationship with them, to know of our history, to tell them of our history, and to encourage them to continue to take care and protect our history.
This is a sacred site. So what I ask of folks is to have open hearts and clear minds when they come in here, because we have to remember that this is a place where people sacrifice their lives over their cultures and their belief systems.
We have 2 days of meetings, and then one day where we get out and we go to sites that have a connection to the tribe, sites that they would be interested in, sites that we would consider American Indian. Last year we visited Fort Ancient and Serpent Mound. This year, as part of the conference, we first stopped at Fallen Timbers.
Since the 1780s, we have an influx of our Native American warriors joining together to fight sporadically against the encroachers, the squatters who are moving over. Now, there is a clear boundary that the United States has agreed to, which is the Ohio River. Yeah, that's not stopping too many people. So even in our own government, we're powerless basically to stop. As you can read accounts that say there were hundreds of settlers floating down the river every day past the fort.
I like the idea of talking with a lot of people. I like the idea of seeing anthropologists, archaeologists, learning from them what they know, and then also teaching them what I know. So it's a good two-way communication between the native way of speaking and also the school way of thinking.
They're going to cut through that body, which is going to create chaos for the Army. Without order, the Native Americans pursue a very small contingent of Americans right into the main body of Wilkinson's 1st and 3rd. The 1st and 3rd are going to get their wits about them eventually. They're going to affix bayonets and they're going to start a charge. When that happens, remember, we've got warriors, about 800, who are cut off from the main line of battle because they're a mile away waiting to see what happens.
I learned something during the tour at Fallen Timbers. Our tour guide, Shannon, who runs that site, I really value how she went out of her way to share the American Indian perspective, because that is what is missing. And I'll tell you, that is a big goal in the work we're doing at the Ohio History Connection. No matter what those stories are, it's our job to make sure we let Native people tell their own histories and their own stories.
8 principal chiefs are going to fall. We have Little Otter, he's going to be shot in the eye. Agusaway looks like he's been mortally wounded. So now there's a little bit of panic that's taking place through the Western Confederacy. They retreat back to Fort Miami. The general, he won't let in the Native Americans, he won't provide them aid because he's been told to not directly engage. And if he directly engaged, he has now declared an open act of war on the United States of America, and he is not willing to do that.
Fort Meigs. This is a reconstruction begun in the late 1960s and finished in the early 1970s. The hill slopes down, and there we have the mighty Maumee. In 1813, this is the only crossing point on the Maumee River. The Army arrives here the first week of February 1813, and General William Henry Harrison comes here with troops of the regular United States Army and with militia forces from 4 states. And today I am dressed as a member of the Ohio Militia. Of course, it is a brutal, brutal winter. How difficult it must have been for those soldiers to come here, to have to fell these trees, to dig the trenches, and to work all day, every day outside in the winter, and then they will sleep right here on the fields that these walls encompass, in a thin little Army tent under a thin little Army blanket.
I'm just basically putting all the pieces together. It's a good reflection on where we were as Native people, where the colonists were at the time, and then it kind of shows where we are at today too. You know, we might not see eye to eye on everything, and that's okay, but as long as we're talking, you know, that's a good stepping off point.
In the early 20th century, this becomes public land, and it was very much kind of like a park. People coming out here, picnicking, and the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic, Civil War veterans, wanted to ensure that while people were out here, that they were reflective, that they were thoughtful. And this monument was put up in 1908. It also will serve as a gravestone for all those individuals who fell here.
This is the first time of being here to Fort Meigs, and I truly enjoyed this. I didn't realize that this is considered the first victory battle of the United States here at Fort Meigs. I was impressed with the obelisk, and the Maumee River is of course in our history, so it's a beautiful sight to see the Maumee.
The barrels and the coopery everywhere, of course, hauling the salted beef, the flour, the gunpowder, and of course the whiskey. Whiskey is part of the American soldiers' daily ration.
This is an opportunity to experience the site firsthand, and sometimes they'll let us know if something doesn't look right. It can create dialogue about how we can tell these stories more comprehensively.
I think it was a little lopsided actually, just because it's the way that they learn. They learn a lot from books, a lot from talking to other anthropologists, other archaeologists, and they took a real scientific look at things. But I do like how they say that they want to learn more about the native oral history.
I think at the Battle of Fallen Timbers, they emphasize the fact that that's the one place where it's told totally from the Native American point of view. And I wouldn't say that this is told totally from the Native American point of view, but I'm not sure that it needs to be, because there are diverse views and we need to know both.
Understanding how this area got founded and how this area played such a vital role in the development of America is really important. I'd like to see more local people come out here and really take to heart what they see and what they hear, and hopefully get more questions than they do answers, because I think asking more questions is really the way to learn.
Next, clues from an Adena mound in Clintonville. Then, an ancient artifact that tells a story. You can still see some of the Adena mounds in the Columbus area that were created thousands of years ago by early Ohio inhabitants, but many were destroyed in the name of progress. When a mound in Clintonville was raised over 60 years ago, Ohio History Connection archaeologists raced to save as many ancient items from the site as they could. And here's what they found.
Well, in the whole of Ohio, there were some 10,000 odd earthworks and mounds that have been found. Now, not all of them were built at the same time. Some of them were built accretionally, others had parts added to them. Some earthworks had burials, some didn't. They didn't necessarily have alignments to stars or sun or anything like that. Some did, some didn't.
We don't know what the Adena people called themselves. The name Adena comes from a state of Thomas Worthington down near Chillicothe, where there was a large mound that was excavated by William Mills about 1903. This is a copy of an 1883 map of Franklin County, and there's odd marks here. These actually mark prehistoric mounds and earthworks in different parts of the county. And there were several up here in the Clintonville area. This dot here on the property of Mr. H.C. Cook is the Dominion Land Company. There's a mound at the end of Rathbone Road where it meets the river. There's 3 mounds over on the property of the Deaf and Blind School. There's one on Webster Park. It was allegedly in somebody's backyard, but seems to have disappeared. There's 3 down here near Olentangy Village. And on the very eastern side of Clinton Township, there's a circular earthwork at Ferris and Westerville Road. If you go and look at it today, there's a pre-Civil War brick farmhouse in the middle of it, and it's just sitting there with a rather uncertain future.
Mounds have had an uncertain future since the European arrival to this area. As neighborhood developments move forward, mounds in the Clintonville neighborhood found their future to be in question.
The Dominion Land Company was developing this area between Glenmont and Huronia, putting a road through, and in that they found this Adena Indian mound.
The Dominion Land Company site was purchased by the Dominion Land Company in March of 1953 for $20,000, and they were going to be building a nice housing complex in that area. The mayor at the time did not really care for the idea of that. He would much rather have saved it for a park. So there was a public meeting and a petition throughout the citizens of Clintonville, and the citizens decided that they thought it was in their best interest to have the housing development go in. So the city council voted 7-0 in favor of the citizens, and construction started in April of 1953. The site originally consisted of an embankment wall that was around 2.9 acres big, and originally 2 mounds. When OHS got on site, one of the mounds was almost completely gone, and most of the embankment wall in that area as well. There was a lot of bulldozing going on at the time, and it was a salvage archaeology project to come in and try to get as much information before it was just completely gone. Initially, they had agreed that they would be there for 2 weeks to do the work, but it ended up taking 4 months.
Here is the blueprint of the site before it was developed, showing the embankment and the 2 mounds, and under one of those mounds was found this post-mold pattern. These are small pits where a piece of wood or a part of a tree would have been put in.
And it may have held a structure or a fence. And that's typical of not only Adena mounds, but Hopewell mounds as well, that they would build a structure for a purpose, and when they're finished using the structure, they tore it down or burned it down or what have you, and then memorialized it by building a mound over top of it.
With that particular structure and that mound, there was a burial that was found, and it was of a 6 to 8-year-old child. The thinking is that that would have been a structure that was used as a mortuary complex type thing.
So once the posts had been removed or the wood had rotted away, people actually used the pits to put things into them and bury them down there. Here is somebody excavating within one of those post molds. So this gives you a little bit of scale. Each post mold is numbered so that they can keep track of what the sizes are of each one, the dimensions, how deep it is, etc., what might be found inside those post molds.
The items found inside the 2 mounds and surrounding ditches were moved to the Ohio History Connection for study and storage.
The assemblage consisted of about 90% pottery, and most of the material that was recovered was not from the mounds themselves. They were from the embankment ditches on either side of the mound. So there's a thought that these deposits were left over from the funerary gathering.
What is significant about the Dominion Land Company mounds are that there was a type of pottery that was excavated there. It's rather crude, thick, grit-tempered pottery, maybe granite-tempered. They didn't have handles on them, they had lugs, these sort of protruding, stubby, cylinder-shaped things that obviously helped to maintain control, to hold it up. And they didn't put these on a fire and cook with them like we do a pot or a pan today, that these were probably set into a shallow trench, and whatever was being cooked was cooked with hot rocks that were put into the pot with the food. And here you can see a large piece of one of these pots. It's nearly 1 inch thick. You'll never confuse this with Southwest pottery by any means. It's not painted. It's got areas where it's been burned. It's wonderful archaeological material. It's just not quote-unquote pretty stuff.
There were lots of animal bones that were left there as well, so there was evidently eating going on at the same site.
There were pieces of tubular pipes, smoking pipes, and that sort of thing recovered. This is a small Adena-style point. It's sort of like a time marker by the sort of ovate stem and the triangular blade. This is typical of the type of point that the Adena people would have made, somewhere roughly between 500 BC and 100 AD. This is probably used as a roller pestle, that they would use this to crush different things, acorns, walnuts.
People have been here for thousands of years, over 10,000 years. It's a good place to be. You can't go anywhere without tripping over this stuff.
The Adena people probably tended patches of plants, sunflower, chenopodium and things, but I don't know if you can really call them farmers.
The area had the rivers, the floodplains, a very rich environment with lots of different plants and flowers and trees and animals to eat. So it was a very good area to live in, easy to transport themselves around on the waterways.
Archaeologists have identified over 10,000 mounds in Ohio. How many more mounds were there that have been lost over time due to construction and farming? We'll never know. What we do know is that we're still learning about the people who made the mounds, their ideas about architecture and burials. All that makes the Hopewell and Adena cultures of the past some of our most enduring neighbors. How we protect the mounds in the future is still a question mark as our communities grow.
Many fascinating items have been recovered from dozens of archaeological sites in Ohio. But as storytellers ourselves, we think the figurine you'll see in this episode of From the Vault is especially thrilling.
Brad, we're about to see one of your favorite items here, so I'm intrigued. What is it?
It's a stone sculpture of a Hopewell medicine man, or perhaps a medicine woman. It's called the Ray figurine, but that simply commemorates the fact that a guy named Charles Ray once owned it. I prefer to call it the Shaman of Newark because it situates this individual in the context in which it was recovered. It was found in the bottom of the largest burial mound at the center of the burial mounds at the Newark Earthworks.
What's that tell you?
That tells you that this individual that it represents, perhaps, certainly the person that it was buried with, was at the very foundations of one of the greatest pieces of architecture in America.
Well, what is it? Tell me about it. Show it to us.
Well, you'll notice it doesn't sit upright. It has to lay down. It's not made to sit on a flat surface to be presented in an exhibit. I think it's meant to be held. And I think it's probably a storytelling object. And you'll see that it's a human. There's no sexual characteristics that allow us to tell whether it's a man or a woman. And in American Indian ceremonial life, both men and women in different tribes can wear bear regalia, so it could be either one. But it's a person wearing bear regalia, a bear's head on their head, bear claws on their hands, what appears to be a decapitated human head in their lap, but the left hand there is on the side of the bear mask or the bear regalia, and I believe it's represented in the very act of transforming from human to bear and back again. That's why I refer to it as a shaman. And if you're telling the story of it, you can make it transform into a bear and back. It depends on what part of the story you're in. And in a way, I think this is an early form of cinema that allows you to animate the figure while you're telling the story to depict, to show the very transformation that it represents.
How old is it?
It's 2,000 years old, belongs to the Hopewell culture.
And is this stone that's carved, or is it clay that was molded?
This is stone that was carved in this way. When it was freshly carved, it would have been a brighter yellow than this. It's weathered to this beautiful brown. And we do find Hopewell burials where a person is interred and a skull, a decapitated human head, is buried with them. Now, in later American Indian cultures, that might be an enemy that they've killed, and it's a trophy skull. And many of these skulls from Hopewell sites were called trophy skulls. But this isn't a warrior, this is a priest. I believe these are ancestors, that it's a form of ancestor worship. If you were an important person in Hopewell society, when you died, perhaps they decapitated you and kept your head. So this is almost like a photograph, or it may be almost like a photograph of a ceremony that was being performed at Newark 2,000 years ago.
This is an amazing object.
The past never gives itself to you as fully as it does in an image like this.
Thanks for being with us, and remember you can catch all our episodes on columbusneighborhoods.org. Plus, see our stories on the WOSU mobile app, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you back here next week on Columbus Neighborhoods.
No more beautiful moons where we spend in our homes, but by the council fire. For the people have grown cold and hungry in a war they begin to tire. You have taken all that we had, what the Creator said was ours. But you cannot take away our soul, it lives in the earth and stars. We will fight no more forever It's a sacred.
Support for Columbus Neighborhoods is provided by
At American Electric Power, we've been proud sponsors of WOSU Public Media for many years and strong supporters of our headquarters city here in Columbus, both downtown and in neighborhoods like yours.
State Auto Insurance Companies, transforming to become a digital provider of auto, home, and business insurance. And for nearly 100 years, committed to the people and neighborhoods of Central Ohio. State Auto. The Columbus Foundation. Smart philanthropy for a smart city. ColumbusFoundation.org. Bailey Cavalieri. Your relationship with your law firm doesn't need to be complicated, it just needs to be right. CODA. Keeps our community moving forward. Falgren Moortime Marketing and Communications. Think wider. Ohio Health focuses on you and your family with a mission to improve the health of our communities. Women in Philanthropy at Ohio State, changing lives by giving together. And by contributions from these and other Columbus area families who support WOSU. Thank you.